want to tell you about a boy named Jack. Now this here Jack is the very same Jack that was in Jack and the Beanstalk. You all have heard of that before. Well, one day Jack went down to the garden and he was doing what his daddy told him. He was chopping around in the corn rows, and he was supposed to be getting the weeds out. So he's got a hoe and he's chopping and chopping and he's chopping the weeds, and he chops at something and he sees it move. Well, he looked closer and it was a snake. And so he chopped, but when he chopped, the snake bit the hoe handle, and the snake reared back, and he was going, whoa! And then he, whoa! And the snake was rearing back, and Jack was going, whoa! And he was holding on like it was a ride. And so Jack, he let go of the hoe handle and fell off. He went over there and looked, and the snake had disappeared. He picked up the hoe handle, and he was still chopping, because he knew his daddy'd be mad if he didn't finish up chopping in the garden and getting the weeds out. But all of a sudden, he started to notice something. The hoe handle was swelling up. And then he saw the snake. And he sneaked over there and he chopped its head off. Now the old folks say if you take a dead snake and hang it over the fence, it'll make it rain. So Jack dragged it over there and he hung it over the fence. And he went back to work. And he was chopping and chopping in the garden, but all of a sudden, that hoe handle was swollen up so much that the hoe popped off the shank. Jack just tossed that old hoe handle over there by the fence and went and got him another one and put it in there into the shank, and he was still chopping and fixing and getting the weeds out of the corn rows. When he was done, he looked over by the fence, and that hoe handle had swole up great big like a log. Wow, he said. So Jack ran up to the house and told his daddy. He said, Daddy, Daddy, come quick. The hoe handle done swole up great big like a log. And so his daddy went down there with him, and sure enough, it had. That hoe handle had swole up so big, and Jack said, Daddy, can we make some boards out of it so I can make a chicken coop? And his daddy scratched his head. He said, oh, well, I think we can. So they took that old hoe handle of a log, and they got it onto the back of the pickup truck, and they took it down to Beach's sawmill, and when they got a hold of that hoe handle, they put it up there, and they started to saw on it. And you know how the saw goes, it was going right down through that wood, but that saw was getting inside the wood, and do you know the boards started swelling up? They made a lot of boards, but the boards was getting bigger and bigger. Jack asked his daddy, he said, Daddy, why do you think it's getting like that? And his daddy said, well, gracious, Jack, what you tell me from that snake biting that hoe handle, it must be the venom from the snake bite what's causing the wood to get to working like that and swelling up. Jack allowed that it was. But sure enough, they got all the boards done, and it took 2 truckloads to get the boards back down there to their house. And when they did, they started in. Jack said, well, we're going to build this chicken coop, and they started in building it. But do you know that every time they put a nail into the boards, that venom got loose and those boards was getting bigger and bigger, and what started out to be a little chicken coop turned into a great big, truly barn. Jack didn't know what to say or which way to look or nothing. It got so big that Jack asked his daddy, could they paint it? And his daddy said, Lord gracious, son, I don't know if we're going to have enough paint for to cover it. But he says, we've got a 5-gallon bucket in the shed, and go on down there and get it. We'll get that paint, and we'll start in painting it. And Jack mixed in some turpentine, and they started to painting that thing, and Jack's daddy was way up on the roof, and he was painting down, and Jack was painting what he could reach from the ground, and on ladders and steps and chairs. And so Jack was painting, his daddy was painting, and they got down to each other, and they finished. And they stood back to admire it. And all of a sudden, that great big barn of a chicken coop, shoo, it shrunk right down to the size of a shoebox. Jack started to cry. His daddy said, Lord gracious, don't cry, son. And Jack said, what for? And his daddy said, well, it was a good thing you hadn't put your chickens in there yet. Well, Jack, he asked his daddy, he says, why do you think it shrunk so much? And his daddy said, Lord gracious, son, it must have been the turpentine what was in that paint what was caused the swelling from the snake bite to come out. Jack, where you going? Jack, what you gonna do? Jack, I think we'll come along and see what you get into. I'll tell you some more stories about Jack the next time we meet.